Care and feeding of a biogas digester. The first thing to realise is that it's basically an artificial recreation of a cow's stomach. It uses the bacteria in a cow's stomach to digest the food that you put into it, and it produces methane, which cows burp out, but we're collecting it to use as cooking gas. So you could consider it like a stomach, in the sense that if you're digesting food, you need food and water. So water is just as important as the food that goes in it. You need a reasonable amount of water as compared to food. You also need to be aware that a cow's stomach operates at body temperature. So that's probably ideal temperature for a biogas digester to operate at. However, they seem to operate quite fine down to about 20 degrees centigrade. So 25 degrees is fine. You know, once you start getting down below 20, then you can run into problems, and it can actually shut down over winter and stuff. So if you're considering it like a stomach, if you want to improve your digestion, you chew your food better. So the smaller you chop up the food that you're putting in it, the quicker it will digest and the more complete the digestion will be. However, from my experience, it seems you can put them in slower, in bigger pieces, and that just means it takes longer to digest. So the residence time in a biodigester, namely how long it takes for the stuff that's in it to digest, can vary anywhere between a few days to a few weeks, depending on what you're putting in it, things that are easy to digest and things that are difficult to digest. If you're putting stuff like grass in it, which is not that great because it's really slow digesting, it could be in there for weeks producing gas. The digester likes a variety of stuff, and basically what you put in is what you get out. The more goodness you put in, the more goodness will come out in the fertilizer that comes out. So if you're putting beans and protein and carbohydrates and stuff like that into it, you will get a better quality fertilizer out the other end than if you're just putting, say, weeds and things and leafy vegetables in it, you know. All that said, it's not that critical. You can put just about any sort of biomass in it, except for things that are burnt and things that are antibacterial. So because the thing works on bacteria, you don't want to put anything in that's antibacterial. But then again, it depends on dosage. Like citrus skins are antibacterial. You can put a few in, but if you're into juicing oranges every day and you juice 20 oranges a day, I wouldn't go putting 20 orange skins in your biodigester a day. One a day, it'll probably be fine, you know, but not too many. Again, with the coffee grounds, I had my biodigester shut down one time because I think I was putting too many coffee grounds in it. The other thing to be aware is that the bacteria can't digest lignin. Lignin is one of the main parts that's in wood. Wood is made of lignin and cellulose, and it's lignin that gives wood its strength. So anything that's woody tends to have lignin in it and probably won't be digested by the digester, and it will accumulate in the bottom. That's how you get your sludge, the undigested material. But it's quite happy to digest cellulose. So toilet paper is basically cellulose, but newspaper has a much higher content of lignin. So don't go putting newspaper in it, but toilet paper and tissue papers are fine. They're processed to take out the lignin. The lignin is what makes paper go yellow with time. So any paper that goes yellow with time, I wouldn't go putting it in. So when you start your biogas digester, you need to get your bacteria from somewhere, and the best thing is cow poo. You can start with other forms of poo that are from herbivores, but I found the best stuff to use is very fresh, sloppy cow poo from a dairy. If you go to a dairy while they're actually milking, they will likely be quite happy for you to come and collect the cow poo, because they've got to clean it up anyway after the cows have gone through milking. So the advantage of doing it while they're milking, the cows are all congregated together on a concrete area, so the poo's all in one spot close together, and it's easy to shovel it off the concrete rather than trying to shovel it off dirt, which is what you might have to do in a feedlot or something like that. And also what they're feeding cows for a dairy may be better for the biodigester than what they're feeding cows for a feedlot. There might be a lot of grain in feedlot, and the time when I have got it from a feedlot, the quality didn't seem quite as good as when I got it from a dairy. Certainly, if that's your only choice, get it from a feedlot. So that gives you the starter mechanism, and if you ever need to restart, you can actually use, like if you want to clean it out from stuff in the bottom, you could just take your fertilizer that comes out the end, because it will have the bacteria in it. You could just have 100 or a couple of 100 litres of that, and then when you flush it all out, you could just put that back in and that will restart it. You don't necessarily need to go back to the dairy to get more cow poo. And finally, when you're starting up a biodigester, you put your cow poo in, you put the water in, you put maybe 100 litres of fresh sloppy cow poo in there. Now you've got a lot of biomass in there to be digested. You don't need to start adding food in there at that point. What you do is you wait until it starts producing flammable gas. And now this may take weeks. At first you may get some carbon dioxide coming out, so it might not be flammable when it first starts coming out. So you've got to wait till it starts producing a reasonable amount of flammable gas. That 100 litres of cow poo is likely to produce enough gas. It'll keep putting out gas for another month or so, you know. So they don't have to rush putting food in it. So they start with a smaller amount of food and then just increase it up as you go. So then it might take a month and then you'll have it all up and running.